Welcome to the Florida Divorce Podcast, your source for the information you need to successfully get through your divorce and into the next exciting chapter of life. Now, here's your host, Attorney Scott Kalish.
Hey everyone, my name is Scott Kalish, and I am a divorce and family law attorney here in South Florida. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that it's not meant for everybody, right? So there's going to be obviously listeners out there that they're going to scroll right over this episode and they're not going to listen to it, and that's okay. This episode is really meant for those people that have a very aggressive, high conflict, very confrontational, either spouse or former spouse, right? So this episode is for someone that is dealing with another spouse that doesn't respect the law, doesn't respect the lawyers, doesn't respect the judge, doesn't respect the parenting plan, doesn't respect court orders, right? So imagine, going through a divorce, right? Getting a parenting plan and, having your kids, which most people, I would say 99 out of 100, the kids are the most important things in the divorce case. And imagine finishing the case and then having a parenting plan and then your former spouse just completely ignoring it and just doing what they want and blatantly violating the terms, blatantly violating the court's order. Imagine how hectic and how chaotic that's going to feel, right? Imagine making plans with family, friends, work, right? And setting work meetings and your ex-spouse just totally ignoring the terms of the order or parenting plan. Imagine thinking that your spouse is going to be picking up your child from school and then just abruptly saying, oh, no, I'm not going to pick them up. It's my day, but actually, you're going to take the day because I'm doing X, Y, or Z. So, or refusing to provide you your child back, right? Imagine the chaos and insanity that follows, right? When this person just refuses to abide by your parenting plan, right? How do you construct your day now that you're living two separate lives, right? So this happens in a fair amount of cases where we deal with people that are very high conflict, very unreasonable, very irrational, and just want to fight, right? So if you don't have a good parenting plan, if you don't have a concise, organized parenting plan, you're going to have issues moving forward if you're working with someone like this. If your ex-spouse is very cooperative, very easygoing, then you're not going to feel these pain points. But if you're dealing with someone that's very high conflict, you cannot leave them the room in the parenting plan to wreak havoc and cause problems, cause issues, right? So this episode really deals with enforcement and creating teeth, the necessary teeth in the parenting plan to make sure that the other person, abides by it, or at least has, or is hesitant to violate the terms, right? So if you don't have any teeth in your parenting plan, then most people are going to be more inclined to violate it, right? And break the law, essentially, because contempt is your recourse, right? That's the tool that you could use to enforce your parenting plan. And contempt, and when you do research on contempt, it sounds like a scary word, right? It sounds like, oh, the judge is going to throw me in jail. The judge is going to fine me a lot of money. The judge is going to do X, Y, and Z for violating the parenting plan. And most people don't realize that the judges typically don't impose that severe of sanctions for contempt, especially only after the first or second time, right? So most of the time, the consequences after a hearing are like a slap on the wrist, right? You file the case, you file your motion for contempt, right? Saying that your spouse violated the parenting plan because they wouldn't give you your child for a particular Saturday. Then you wait months and months to, number one, you got to hire an attorney, file the motion, spend thousands of dollars, wait a few months, go to the hearing date, and then they get a slap on the wrist, right? So nothing really happens. So attorney's fees, you might be thinking, oh, well, they're going to pay my attorney's fees. Well, not so fast, because courts, the judges have discretion. Judges have discretion to award attorney's fees or not. What I mean by discretion is they have the option. They don't have to award attorney's fees. And sometimes they don't, right? It's not uncommon where judges say, you know what, Mr. Smith, you should not have violated that parenting plan. And next time we're going to make you pay fees, but this time you're not going to have to pay fees. So sometimes people are sitting there like, oh my God, they violated the parenting plan. I filed a motion for contempt and nothing happened, right? And they're shocked. Well, these judges, are not super strict regarding contempt. So that's why you have to take it upon yourself to include a provision in there that removes the court's discretion, right? So the court has the option to award attorney's fees. But if you include what's called a prevailing party's attorney's fees provision, you would basically remove that discretion. So all you have to do is prove that the other person intentionally violated the parenting plan, right? Or just violated the parenting plan. I think you can leave intent out of it for this purpose. You can just say, hey, I didn't get my child, on this particular Saturday, and it was because the other parent wouldn't allow me to come pick them up. And at that point, if there's a finding of violation of the parenting plan, you can have a provision in your parenting plan that automatically requires the other spouse to pay for your attorney's fees, which is super helpful because now you're not relying on the judge to award attorney's fees. You can just go to court, prove your case, and then automatically get attorney's fees paid. So that's super helpful for most people because that's going to prevent, or at least put your former spouse on notice that, hey, if you want to go to the judge every time that there's a violation, you're going to have to pay my attorney's fee. Sometimes that's a huge deterrent for future violations. But if you don't have that in there, then there's always going to be that little bit of an ambiguity as to what's going to happen and how long is it going to take, right? So if your spouse gets hit, a few $1,000s for every violation, attorney's fees, I think it's going to definitely deter or act as a deterrent for future violations. So that's why it's extremely important that if you're dealing with a high conflict ex-spouse, that you have this provision in there. But, big but, they have to agree to it, right? So you have to be savvy and at mediation, right, when you're negotiating your parenting plan, to include that and for that to be a non-negotiable item, right? So that either parent, if they're brought to court later on for a violation, that losing parent has to pay the winning parent's attorney's fees, right? That's got to be, if you're someone that follows the law and is going to respect the parenting plan, that should be in there. If you're not that person, then I wouldn't recommend putting that in there. But no, you should always be that person. Do not follow the parenting plan. It's important, right? It's an agreement. It's a court order once accepted by the court. So it's important that you follow it. So again, a big deterrent is to include a prevailing party attorney's fees, because if not, then basically a slap on the wrist in most cases. So with that, don't enter into a parenting plan with a high conflict ex-spouse without a provision that awards the winning party their attorney's fees if there's a violation. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if you're dealing with a high conflict co-parent, this is something that I think is really valuable. And I hope that you learned something from this. If you like the podcast, please give it a 5-star review wherever you're listening. If you would like to reach out to us and inquire about whether or not we can represent you, feel free to give us a call, speak with our intake specialist, Vanessa. Our main number is 561-208-1859. Again, 561-208-1859. And my email address is scott@kjlawfla.com, scott@kjlawfla.com. Thank you guys for listening and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Florida Divorce Podcast. To learn the 10 secrets behind every successful divorce, visit floridadivorcepodcast.com. If you'd like Scott's help in your divorce case, go to kjlawfla.com.